Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is Saturday morning, and this is Multifamily Unplugged. I am certainly glad you're joining us again. And if you're new for the first time, I know that after this episode, you're going to want to thank the person who encouraged you to show up here this morning. So I hope that you have your coffee and that you're ready. And one word of caution, buckle up. Today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. I'm going to have my good friend Bronson Hill on, and Bronson is with Bronson Equity, and he's out of Pasadena, California. And we got talking a couple of weeks ago about money, and I've had a couple of episodes here where we've been talking money strategy, and how do you position yourself and position your portfolio. But I think with Bronson this morning, we're going to come with a different aspect. We are going to really talk about the mindset, the psychology around money, and, maybe what you need to be thinking about, what you need to believe. So this is a little bit different than your standard Multifamily Unplugged, where we typically rock and roll about the apartment business and have guests on talking about, acquisitions but how do we get there, right? We have to have that money mindset, that focus around being able to raise capital to get deals done. One thing is we are a function of the capital around us. And if you're a capital raiser, if you're somebody new in the syndication business, you have to be able to raise capital. And I think we're going to talk a lot about that today. So let me bring my good friend Bronson in. Bronson, good morning.
Hey, Mike, good morning. Good to see you, man. Always great to talk with you and always learn something and always have a great chat. So looking forward to today.
Boy, we got to see each other a couple of weeks ago in Vegas, and you spoke at our monthly meetup out there. And it was good to see you and connect and break bread with you and spend some time. And, we got talking about this thing about money. And, I want to dive into that this morning because I think I'm more and more fascinated about the science behind it, what the brain, how your brain and body need to react in order to accomplish what we try to accomplish. But before we jump into that, my one question I always ask is, in one word, Bronson, what best describes you personally and professionally?
I'd say focused. Say just being focused on goals and what I want, what I want to create in life.
Yeah, and do you think that you've always been a focused person?
No. I mean, I can think of a time where, times in my life where I wasn't. I mean, I think the problem with the challenge with focus is that you've got to know what you want to focus on. And I think, when you're young, there's this, and, just even throughout life, sometimes it's like, well, hey, I don't know what I should focus on. I don't know what the focus should be. And so I think if for a while you discover a lot of things, you try different things when you're a kid. I think it's great to do all kinds of different projects and craft projects and sports and all kinds of things, because you kind of figure out what you're good at, what you like. And then over time you figure out as you get older, hopefully there's this kind of funnel where you get more and more, you kind of come in and you say, this is actually what I'm going to do. But it's good to reevaluate. But I think that, focus in general, if you can get clear on what you want, move towards it, you're going to have way better results and enjoy your life more.
Yeah. I feel like, here we are, it's not too far into the beginning of the year. Holidays are behind us. New Year's is behind us. You kind of set those New Year goals, those resolutions, and over time you lose focus. But, personally myself this year, I have to just say, I feel more focused than I have felt in a long time. I've been really on a mission to accomplish a raise on a property we're working on and get that done. And because of the focus and that action that I'm taking on a consistent basis, and I think, when you talk about focus, that becomes important too, is the action you take behind it, right?
Yeah.
And, in getting that done. So I'm super focused myself this year. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, I think too, it's interesting. Warren Buffett has this thing. He would say focus obviously is very important as well. But, he said the difference between successful people and highly successful people is that highly successful people at the highest echelon, they say no to almost everything. And so when you focus, you got to really say no to almost everything and focus on the one thing that really matters. And that's hard for us. Like I have a lot of different interests. A lot of people, especially a lot of entrepreneurs have I don't think I have ADHD, but a lot of people have ADHD. It's just, there's so many great things out there. It's focusing on the things that really matter. And so I think that's important.
Yeah. And, we all run a couple of businesses these days, and it's easy to get caught up in one thing or another and, kind of lose the focus that you're on. But I think scheduling and time blocking are really important, and you've got to have certain times in your calendar every day, every week, and show up for those time blocked events like raising capital or making those phone calls or, cleaning up your database or whatever it might be. And you got to show up like if you were meeting an investor or if you and I were going to have lunch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm a big time blocker. I think I do Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. I try to do all my calls, my team calls, my podcast interviews, things like that. And then Wednesday and Friday, I try just to do deep work. I try to get into, okay, well, I need to record some content. I need to really think about the business. A lot of times we're so busy doing the work that we don't think about what we're actually doing. And especially if you're like you and I, where there's a million things we could do, right? So what are the one or two things, and kind of reevaluating, am I getting the results for my business or my life that I want?
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, why don't you take a couple minutes, tell people a little bit about you, your background. I know you've got a couple of books you've written, and let people know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so I was a well-paid medical sales professional. I was making over $200,000 a year doing that. I worked with a lot of physicians that were making millions a year, and but a lot of these guys were working 60 or 80 hours a week. Anybody in the medical field, it's hard to take vacations, and when you don't, especially as a physician, I wasn't a physician, but I saw these guys, they'd make great money, but if they didn't go to work, they didn't get paid. And so to me, it didn't feel like freedom. So I thought, well, I want to create financial freedom, which to me was really time freedom. And so I've been able to do that over time. I learned about real estate, started raising capital for multifamily deals, shifted the last few years into business related deals, debt funds, oil and gas, other types of projects. And I've traveled, over the years to 48 countries. It's been a blessing, but love traveling, love being able to create. Wrote the book Fire Yourself, which became an Amazon bestseller. And then I've written a second book called Rich Brain, How the Wealthy Change Their Brain to Change Their Bank Account, which I actually have needed to rewrite because I basically realized it's a series. It's not a single book, it's a series. So that's kind of on the burner right now. I just got to get to it. I just haven't had time to get to it.
Wow, that's interesting. You're going to write a series. That's pretty, I always thought that books like that were series made more of an impact.
Yeah. Well, I think you can get it, the challenge with a book, and writing a book, I mean, you've written several books or even a couple of books as well. It's a labor of love. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. I mean, now AI can help in some levels, but people want stories and they want to know you. They don't want to, there's so much fake everything out there that it's like, we want to tell stories. So you just do it right. It takes a lot of time. But I think that a lot of times in a book, if you can get really specific on what's the one thing you want to say, and if there are other things around that, and you consider like the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series, that started as one book and it became a series because there was so much to say, but every single, topic, and Robert Kiyosaki had a lot to say, right? So there's a lot of things around different topics. And so I think that, if you can really clarify your message and really be able to touch the mainstream with it, it really can open up a lot. And then a series can be super impactful, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. When I think about a book series, I always think about the Chicken Soup for the Soul books.
Yeah.
And all of the different ones. Boy, oh boy, Jack Canfield was brilliant with that. That's for sure. Hey, let's dive in. You already mentioned a couple of people, right? You talked about Warren Buffett. You talked about Kiyosaki. And, when in this world of real estate investing, money's a big thing. We have to have capital to get a deal, buy a deal. We have to have capital to repair a deal, and hopefully make capital when we exit a deal, right? Yeah. But I think it's that starting point. I think so many people are stuck in, negative thoughts, negative patterns in their life that they don't have enough, they can't accomplish it. I remember talking to an investor one time who said, boy, I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to get into this. And then when you talk to them about passive investing, they're like, oh, I didn't know that, So,
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around any of that? I know that kind of just spewed a whole bunch out, but.
Yeah, well, it is really interesting because I think that there are beliefs that, basically bring money to us and repel money from us. I heard Robert Kiyosaki once say, being wealthy is not having money or not having money. It's having, if you were to lose everything, being able to quickly make it back through your knowledge and your network and things like that. I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. But, there's this narrative in our culture that you either have money or you don't, right? There's the haves and the have-nots. But the truth is Fidelity Investments did a 2019 study, and they found that 86% of millionaires are self-made, which is kind of surprising and shocking, right? That almost 9 out of 10 people that became millionaires, these are people that, were not wealthy before. Basically, almost all of them that were millionaires, they did not inherit it. There was a small amount of people that did, but for most of them, they learned how to do it. So that should be incredibly encouraging to any of us, because these are learnable, teachable skills, right? They're things that we can do from a mindset perspective and a habit perspective. And so, again, look at the most wealthy people in the world. Almost all of them didn't come from wealth, right? It's like they learned it. They learned how to do this. So I think that's one thing that was an aha moment for me. And I actually had this ride with an Uber driver. I was in Dallas, Texas at a conference, and I took a phone call where somebody's going to wiring $100K for a deal or something. And so I was kind of talking. And so this person overheard this conversation. And then she just, it's probably early 30s. She said, well, tell me, how do I learn about money? And it was hard because I didn't really know, like, how do you teach someone? Because the problem is, in our culture, we're taught to spend more than we make, put everything on credit card debt, basically mortgage tomorrow for living today. And these are the things that actually keep people poor. They keep people poor and middle class versus things that actually are empowering, that actually create wealth. And so I think that we have to, and this is the problem too, is if you look at people that inherit or win the lottery, especially winning the lottery, only something like 11% of people who win the lottery, 5 years later, something, say that their lives are better off after they won the lottery, right? So there's this idea that, like, if I were just to give you as a listener, millions and millions or billions of dollars, it probably wouldn't be a blessing for you. It'd be because the belief system around money is wrong, the stewardship principles are wrong, and the character around money and the beliefs around money is typically not correct. And so if you don't get that part right, even if you were to get a bunch of money, you probably wouldn't be able to handle it. So this is where the beliefs around money, the beliefs around your own abilities, the possibility around money, it's so important to get that right, because if you don't do that right, you're going to just repel, or even if you get the money, you're going to lose it. So I didn't really see that until, I can get into more kind of how I discovered that, but it's very interesting.
I love how you talk about beliefs, right? And, kind of a side by side with that, Tony Robbins talks about beliefs, but he says, if you have a garden full of weeds, you can't go out and say, I don't have any weeds. I don't have any weeds. I don't have any weeds. You got to go pull the weeds. It's the same thing with belief, I think. And I want to know your opinion on this. You can believe and believe and believe, but if you don't take some action and some, direction, just belief alone, is it or is it not going to change the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think the challenge, it's funny, there's a lot of faith stuff. I know you have a faith background as well, and faith in God and some of your beliefs as well. But I think a lot of it is, even things that Jesus talked about, whatever things you ask for in prayer, believe that you'll receive and you'll have it. So it's this idea that these are spiritual principles, but they also show up in real life, right? So if I think there's this thing that really popped up for me in some of the research, was this idea of worthiness, right? So a lot of times we don't get in life what we always what we want. We get often what we feel worthy of. And so there's a lot of people that don't get good results because their self-talk is negative, right? So so that's the reason I'm working, because I'm stupid or I'm dumb, or this, if I was only better or smarter. And what happens is, this is basically kind of working against ourselves. If I don't see myself as being worthy of a great relationship, If I walk into a room I'm at a party or something and I see a beautiful woman and I go say, hello, but on the way over, my self-talk is, oh, she's never going to like you. You're not good looking and you have nothing to offer. How's that conversation going to go? Right? It's probably not going to go very well. Right. So there's the self-sabotaging behaviors that we do that basically kind of cause us to, really limit what we actually get in our life. So we'll say we want something, but with our actual beliefs and what we feel like we can receive, it's actually less. And so it's the same with wealth. I actually have seen people in my own life. Actually, I've seen this where I had a business deal that had been about 5x the size of my business, and I passed on it because I just felt like, well, that's not really what we do, right?
Yeah.
And then once I realized it, because I was doing some of this work, I came back and said, oh, this actually could be a work. And it actually became something that, we actually pursued the option. It was a business acquisition. We were about ready to close, and a situation outside of my circumstances allowed us not to be able to close on it. But it was like, I basically had received that to be able to walk forward in it. So I think that these things are subtle, but they're so important, right? They're so important that we take note of what we're believing about ourselves, how we visualize ourselves, because the things that we're saying about ourselves and the things that we're believing about ourselves, that's who we're becoming. And this is anybody I know that's made big shifts in their life. It almost always happens in the mindset first, and then it shows up in life later. It is like a manifestation. I mean, that whole, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe you receive in your heart, you'll have it. That to me is Jesus saying, hey, it's kind of a form of manifestation, right? It's like saying, hey, what are you believing and seeing about yourself? What are you asking for in prayer? What do you want in your life? And if you're clear about what you want to focus on, you actually are able to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I just want to back up for a minute to, just mention that, I couldn't do anything in my life if I didn't have Jesus in my life, and that is, you and I both come from that world, and I think it's really important, because, and in scripture, there is so many verses about money and about prosperity and about, and so much of it is about giving back to others first and building that legacy in that direction.
Yeah. There's actually more, I believe, I'm a person of faith as well, but there's more in scripture in the New Testament, Jesus talking about money than there is about heaven and hell combined, right? He talks so much about it because money is very, they say it makes you more so, right? If somebody's a jerk, if somebody gets money, they're gonna be a jerk with money, right? Or somebody's like,
you're really just a bigger jerk.
Yeah, exactly, just a bigger jerk. If you're generous, you're kind, you're a loving person, you're gonna be more kind and more loving. So it really amplifies. And I think that there are a lot of people in the world that are not great people that have money. And so I think that if you're someone who's trying to make a difference in the world and trying to help others, then I think you having money would be a great thing. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of start this as well, because a lot of people that are very egocentric, they feel worthy of everything great, and they get a lot of money, right? Because they have those beliefs around money, and it works for them as well. But for those that maybe feel a little more timid or just, hey, it just really hasn't worked out for money in my life, or hey, when I started, I didn't have money. I'm making a good salary, but I didn't have money. I went through a divorce a few years earlier, just really didn't have much money. But it said, it takes money to make money. It just doesn't have to be your money, right? So you can actually help other people get what they want. As Zig Ziglar would say, if you help enough, you can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. So I think it's just this idea of service, right? I think money follows value, and if you can create value for people, helping people get what they want, that creates value. Eventually you'll get paid, and you'll get paid very well to be someone who helps other people.
I love your comment about it. Just it doesn't have to be your money, right?
Yeah.
I remember, the first real estate seminar I ever went to where I really got hooked on real estate was a Robert Allen seminar. And Robert Allen back in the 80s wrote a book, Nothing Down, right?
Yeah.
How you can buy real estate with no money down. And, it doesn't have to be your money, right? It could be your tenant's money. It could be an investor's money. You could joint venture, you could raise capital, and we do all of that in our businesses, you and I both. And I think that a lot of people don't think that that's possible and don't think that it can happen that way. And, again, I think it goes back to belief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's belief, and it's absolutely possible. And that's the amazing thing about real estate and investing in general. If you're willing to go to meetups, if you're willing to go to conferences, you will meet the most interesting people, especially conferences. I mean, meetups are great too, because there's a lot of people that are locally doing things. But if you're just curious, you're open, you find people that are actually doing things in real estate and investing. It kind of blew my mind. I met people are doing this thing that is niche. I didn't even know this existed, and they're making tons of money doing this, right? And so people are very willing to share what they're doing, how they've made money, what's worked, and also what hasn't worked. And so that's a big principle of it, is just being willing to get around people, to be a learner, to grow, because as Brian Tracy says, if you want to earn more, you got to learn more. You got to be willing to get in the room, got to be willing to be the dumbest person in the room, to be in very smart rooms with people that are very smart, that are doing it, and just to be willing to ask questions and grow. And I think that's where I've seen people do very, very well, just because they're very curious and open to learn.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting this morning already. And I think you and I do this a lot. We mention other people a lot. So, we've talked about Warren Buffett and Kiyosaki and Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins. And I think it's because you and I come from a place of education where we can't get better professionally or give anybody else something better until we get better ourselves. And I think it all starts internally, right? So it starts with reading more books, listening to great podcasts like this one, like yours, and that's where the shift comes in, I think. And I know that you and I both, long before we ever met, had shifts in our life that caused us to go from where we might have been at that time, which for me was trading time for dollars, which was thinking I'm never going to be rich, I can't ever get there, to now living a life of prosperity with a mindset that says I can do more, and I can help other people because of what I do more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, being willing, I think, we talked about the mindset. That's kind of the first thing. And then the other pieces, some of the other pieces are the learning, the education piece, the learning, like you said, good podcasts and good books. And I read 100 books in 2025 as a goal. I've never done it before, so I did it. And I was super proud of myself. I listened to books too, which they count. And then there's really the networking. I mean, I have made millions of dollars from just simply meeting the right person and finding a way to add value to them. So good networking is not simply showing up and handing out business cards and shaking hands and talking about what you do. It's really, when you're talking with someone, really thinking about what is it this person needs to get them to the next level, right? What do they need? And a lot of times it's a book recommendation, it's an introduction, maybe somebody in the room, hey, I want to introduce you to this person, or I want to do this for, hey, have you thought about how you're going to solve this problem in your business? One of the best ways I went from raising 100,000 to raising 15 million over the next 18 months was being at a high ticket event, which we run events for high paid mastermind groups called the Wealth Forum, which I've been to one of those events before. And I just basically showed up to somebody who I respected, and I said, hey, how's it going for you guys raising money? When they would teach other people to raise money, I said, how's it going for you guys? And what if you did this, or what about this, whatever? And it led to this conversation where we ended up partnering together. And I started raising a whole bunch of money from his investors. And that's how I learned how to raise capital, right? It just came from this approach of like, how can I help you? And so I think that's even something I'm trying to do these days. I really would love to get more into the senior care space or senior housing space. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to conferences with, senior care conferences, and I'm just showing up with that give first approach of, hey, how's it going in raising capital? What's going on in this area? Whatever. And then if I can do that, maybe we can partner together. Maybe I can kind of actually come on board and help them with all their capital, right? So there's ideas there that could be huge for both of us. And so I think when you look for that win-win in relationships, it's really amazing what's possible.
So two things real quick before I kind of shift gears again. But first, let me know the next senior conference you're going to. Senior housing.
I'm going to one next week. I'm going to one next week if you want to come in LA.
Where? In LA?
It's in LA. It's called Interface West. I'll send you the information on it.
Please do, because just like you, that's really a space that I'd like to get more involved with.
Yeah, the Silver Tsunami.
Yeah. The second thing is, look at Silver Tsunami, right? The second thing is, why don't you tell people about your Wealth Forum and who can come to that and why they should come to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Wealth Forum, we really started this because I've had, many conversations, over 2,500 conversations with high net worth investors. And one challenge is if you're a physician, if you own a business, if you're CPA, a lot of times people are very busy. A lot of times they're very isolated. We've had people live in rural areas or areas that aren't as busy. And if you have a lot of money, let's say you have a net worth of 2 million, or we had a guy who's worth, probably $40 million in a rural part of the Northwest. And, he just didn't know, who do you talk to about money, right? You talk to anybody in finance, you and I included, Mike, everybody's biased. Everybody's got something that they want to promote. And so, but the most transformational relationship is another passive investor who doesn't have a dog in the fight. They're not trying to sell you anything. They're just simply saying, hey, I worked with these guys for 10 years. They're awesome. I would never work with these guys again for this reason. But those recommendations or that information is really valuable. So we created this group called the Wealth Forum. We meet in person 4 times a year. We're doing 2-day events now. So we're doing 2-day events 4 times a year. And it gives a chance for people to come in. There's some good speakers, but it's really a chance to kind of get to know other high net worth investors and really kind of brainstorm. Hey, here's the biggest issues I'm working on in my business, my investing, and also my life. And how do I raise my kids so they're not spoiled, right? So we kind of talk. I thought it was going to be all business and investing related, but it's become a lot of, mindset stuff. Hey, I've achieved everything I want at age 60 and made more money than I know what to do with. And what's next for me, right? Or how do I, solve these other problems in other areas? So it's really great to just have a peer group that's in the same place as you. So that's what we started. So we're doing one actually coming up March 5th and 6th in Scottsdale, Arizona. And we have kind of a reduced rate if people would like to join and they qualify. I would love to just welcome anybody to that.
Great. And we'll get people your information at the end so that they know how to reach out to you. So I want to go back to this thing about believing, that believing you're worthy of attracting more money, of raising capital, of doing deals, right? Is it all, and I'm a huge Joe Dispenza fan. And is it all just belief, or does your body need to feel that belief also? So can I believe, not take any action and it's going to show up? Or do I have to believe, take some action, it's going to show up? Or do I have to have all 3 of those things going on? When I believe and feel it in my body internally and take action, is that where the growth is going to be? Any opinions on any of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love Joe Dispenza as well. I mean, I think it's, I think you can believe whatever you want to believe. If you don't actually believe it, you're not going to take those actions. If so there's the idea of what's actual belief or what's actual faith, right? You actually are taking those actions, right? As it says, faith without works is dead, right? If we're not actually doing the things, the faith doesn't mean anything. If you say you believe something, but you're not. There was an interesting exercise I did a couple of years ago at a business event where they said, okay, I want you to close your eyes. We're standing up and I want you to visualize yourself as that 10X person. You have 10X the net worth. You're 10 times as successful. And just imagine what that would feel like. What would that feel like in your body? How would you feel? Whatever. And just go through all those things. And then they said, okay, now we need to take a step forward and actually step into that person now. Step into that, like what that actually feels like. You are that person now. How do you interact with people? How do you feel yourself? I mean, do you feel different? What feels different? What are the things that change? And so I do think it is a big deal. Now, I do have a thing about this. I think that sometimes it doesn't always show up in like, I do this and then next week, this certain thing happens, right? It's not like it's instantaneous, not like it's, okay, this exact cause, exact effect. The timing sometimes can be a little different. We don't know. It could be tomorrow. It could be next week. Could be next year. It could be 5 years from now. It could be down the road. But I think that as you're that person, you're going to be experiencing life different. And I think from a faith perspective and just as a holistic perspective, Tony Robbins says this as well, that everything in life is not happening to us, even on our worst day. It's happening for us, right? There's some sort of preparation that's happening. And I think when you have, part of my faith in God is like, well, I believe that he's actually preparing me for something greater down the road. There's actually some greater moment, whether it's, on this earth or the future or whatever. Like I just feel like it's all preparing me for something. And I think if you lose that, then, and you don't see it, let's say you try this for a month or 6 months, whatever, it doesn't work, you just don't see the results like you want, you start to give up on it. So I think that, this is work you do, you keep doing it, you keep going for it. And all of a sudden something happens and there's a shift and you see it. And it doesn't happen, it's not like it's a win the lottery overnight thing. But I think if you invest in this and you continue to invest in it because you believe it works and you believe that what you're doing is actually changing things for yourself, your family, for the future, you'll keep doing it. and that you eventually you will see it again, whatever timing that is.
So if somebody's listening to you and I this morning, and no matter where they're at in their life, brand new investor, whether it's real estate or AI or, gas and oil, or there's somebody that's a seasoned investor or somewhere in between, what are three next steps that somebody can take to progress over the next year?
I think, there's a few things. One is obviously there's the mindset work, and there's a lot of things you can do there. I think that if you just become very curious about your self-talk, you're very curious about anytime when you stub your toe, do you say, oh, I'm so dumb, I'm so clumsy? Or you say, oh, wow, I stubbed my toe. That's so like, do you just kind of notice it and be curious about it, rather than judging? So I think if you can get beyond, if you can flip that around instead of, hey, I stubbed my toe, I'm an idiot, to I stubbed my toe and okay, I'm human, it's okay. This is going to be, I'm going to bounce, but you find a way to kind of turn it into positive self-talk and be your own encourager rather than your own person that tears against. Because if you can do that, I think most of us start out in our life being negative and being very critical because a lot of these things happen when we're young. We just interpret it that it's got to be me and I'm the problem. But if you turn that around, you can become very resilient. And I think that one of the things I've noticed, and I think there's a quote about this somewhere where it's like your success in life is directly correlated to your willingness to take risk. Right. So to basically, you're going to be successful to the how much uncertainty you're able to tolerate. Right. You're going to go through things that like, you don't know how it's going to turn out. And if it turns out, it's going to be amazing. And if it fails, hopefully it's not you die or you lose all your money, but like, okay, I learned something. I'm going to move on. Maybe it costs a little money, a little time, but I'm willing to put myself in things that, I fall on my face or it doesn't work or I said the wrong thing or whatever, or I've never done before, because that's how I grow. That's how we all grow.
Yeah. So two comments here. You talked about stubbing your toe and the difference in opinion. I've kind of made a shift in my own life personally from, oh, I have to do this to I get to do this.
Yeah.
Right. Like, oh, instead of saying this morning, oh, I have to do this podcast with Bronson, I say, I get to do this podcast with Bronson. And I think that subtle shifts in our self-talk and what we say to ourselves really helps change our perspective and change our direction, right? And can help take us to that next level. I think it's really important. But success versus risk, do you think you're more of a risk taker today than you were when you were younger? Or do you think you're more of a risk taker today? And what would you say to somebody who's not, a big risk taker?
Yeah, I think it's, everybody's geared differently. I think I've always been someone who is willing to try things, and I think I've gotten better at that. But I think, it's funny when you're a kid, you're trying new things often. You're like, oh, I'm new. It's the first day of middle school, right? I literally remember the first day of middle school, they were calling out roll and they said, they're doing roll call of Sally Smith here, Mike Morawski here. Well, Bronson Hill, and then my voice squeaked and it was here, so it was just like totally uncomfortable, embarrassed. Everybody laughed. It was so embarrassing. So, you're dealing with that when you're young, but I think when you get older, it gets easy. Like we want to be comfortable. I want to be comfortable, but the growth happens in the stretching zone, in the uncomfortable zone. It happens when I'm willing to go out there. So I do things and they fail and it's okay. Or I do things and we figured it out and we get it done, but not everything. I would say the majority of things I try, and I'm not talking about specifically about deals, but I'm just talking about trying new sorts of avenues, going out to do new things, trying new projects, going to events and learning and asking questions. So I think that it's so important to just be willing to push yourself. So I think if someone's like, hey, I would say, look at your life and say, are you getting the results from your life that you want? If you are, great. You don't have to change anything, right? If you're happy with, and you can fast forward the next 5-10 years and say, hey, I'm pretty comfortable with the way things are going, then you're good. But if you're like, I want different results. I want to have more financial security. I want to be able to give more. I want to be able to make an impact more. Well, then you're going to have to do something different. It's not going to come to you, right? So if you are someone who, and I imagine people listen to this show are people saying, I want different results in my life. I want bigger. I want my family. I want these things for the impact I want to make. Then you have to be willing to take risk.
Yeah.
So you have to create, what happens is you have to create a bright enough future. The goal and the focus is so exciting and so compelling that the cost of staying where you are or the way you are is too painful, right? And that's how you motivate yourself, right? You create this really bright future that's like, oh, I just can't help but move towards this. And even if I fail 100 times, like, it's going to be so good when I get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, as we start to land the plane this morning, if you were talking to somebody about getting into investing and knowing that you have all these platforms, you've got real estate, you have gas and oil, you have precious metals, you have AI to invest in, you have different opportunities, traditional stocks and bonds, and somebody was saying, hey, Bronson, I want to start my investing journey. What are a couple of key things that you would what direction would you point somebody into today?
Yeah, I think real estate's a good place to start. It's understandable. It's for people to kind of understand and know. I do think it's harder today to get cash flow from real estate, which is really what a lot of people want. But I think just being willing to learn. I mean, my book is a great way to kind of learn about what's out there. And I think as an investor, you don't only have to do one specific asset. Like, I don't only have to do single family houses and rent them out. I don't have to do multifamily. I don't have to do oil and gas. You can pick and choose. So I think really getting clear on what your goals are. So if your goals are, hey, I want to leave my job or I want to sell my business and have cash flow coming in, then there are certain investments that do that, right? And there are certain investments that do not do that, right? So I think it's important to say, if I want to have, $6,000 a month in cash flow so I can, have my rat race number, I don't have to work, it's kind of really true financial freedom, then look for that. And there's ways to get there. And so I think that's really important to figure out what your goals are and then find things that correlate with that.
Yeah. Well spoken. Hey, last question. Where do you see 2026 and the financial markets headed?
It's a good question. I don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know. I think continually the government will continue to spend on a deficit and create more currency than what we have in circulation. So anything that hedges inflation, anything that cash flows, right? I mean, I actually have a free report. My favorite investments in 2026. So if people text the word cash flow, all one word, the word cash flow to the number 33777, we'll send you that report for free. But I think it's just, again, finding things that regardless of what the economy or regardless of what real estate or regardless of what any of these things do, what will create more cash flow for you? Because that's, I think, what leads people to freedom.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, listen, thank you for being here this morning. It's always great to connect and spend a little bit of time. Why don't you tell people how to get a hold of you?
Yeah, that report's a good way. So the report I shared, we have our website, bronsonequity.com. You can learn more about us and join our investor club and things like that. But it's always great to see you, Mike. I always appreciate connecting with you. You always add a lot of value, and I love your story and how you want to help. You really help a lot of people. So I'm grateful for you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm grateful for you as well. Hey, would you hang out with me in the back room for a minute? I'm going to say goodbye and be right there. Hey, everybody. I hope that was good for you this morning. I know for me it was, to get your mind around your beliefs and what you can accomplish. If anything resonated for you this morning and you feel that Bronson can maybe give you some help or be there as a sounding board or guidepost, reach out to him. Get that free report. See what he's predicting as far as best investments here in 2026. If I can do anything for you, don't hesitate to reach out. I love to network, love to meet new people. So make sure that you reach out on our website or social media. Like us, love us, subscribe to our channel. We're here every week. We're bringing you the best of the best, talking about those burning topics for you today. So grateful for you to be here. We'll be here next Saturday morning. Look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great day, everyone.